Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into a really intriguing and deep topic: how to accept that not everyone will like you, and why this is essential for your peace of mind and independence. Often, our desire to be liked by everyone makes us dependent on others' opinions, and even leads us to be controlled by them. If you're interested in this topic and want to learn how Stoicism can help free you from this pressure, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's much more to come to help you understand yourself better and build a life free from others' judgments. Thanks for your support, and let's get started.
Chapter 1. Recognize the limits of your control. Introduction to control and its limits. Every person occasionally faces situations where they want to be liked by others. We all, to some degree, seek acceptance and approval, which is completely natural. This tendency has deep roots in human history, as survival was once tied to how well one was integrated and accepted within a group. But what happens when the desire to be liked becomes so strong that we start sacrificing our own interests, opinions, and values just to gain the approval of others? The first step toward inner freedom is understanding that trying to be liked by everyone is an illusion that leads to a loss of control over our lives. Stoicism teaches that we must accept the limits of our control over external factors. This allows a person to focus on what is truly within their power, their own thoughts, decisions, and actions. What is control in the context of Stoicism? Stoic philosophers taught that the key to happiness and inner peace lies in understanding the difference between things we can control and things we cannot. This principle is very simple, yet profoundly meaningful. Epictetus, one of the most famous Stoics, said that there are only two areas within our control: our own actions and our own thoughts. Everything else is beyond our power. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Reflections, "Do not waste energy trying to change what is beyond your control." These wise words feel especially relevant today when many people tend to compare themselves to others and worry about others' opinions. Questions that are important to ask yourself at this stage: which thoughts and actions truly depend only on me? How much do I rely on others' opinions when making important decisions? How often do I change my actions or beliefs just to gain someone's approval? Example: recognizing when you depend on others' opinions. Imagine that your boss at work praises a coworker for their creativity and enthusiasm. Suddenly, you start feeling insecure, thinking you also need to be more creative to earn your boss's recognition. This example shows how easily we fall into the trap of seeking approval without realizing that the inner turmoil comes from a desire to be accepted and noticed. The Stoic approach would encourage asking yourself, how do I evaluate my own abilities independently of others' opinions? And remind yourself that your boss's approval is an external variable influenced by many factors, including subjective preferences and current tasks. How to develop a conscious attitude toward others' opinions. Developing a conscious attitude toward external opinions starts with ceasing to rely on them. Stoics argue that when we strive for others' approval, we hand control of our lives over to them. One way to cultivate this awareness is to regularly remind yourself that others' opinions should not influence your decisions if they are grounded in your values and principles. Mindfulness technique. Write down your thoughts and emotions. Every time you feel dependent on someone's opinion, note it and try to understand why you feel that way. Regularly remind yourself that only your opinion of yourself matters. Repeat affirmations like, "My worth is determined by my actions and thoughts, not by others' opinions." Practice internal dialogue. In challenging moments, ask yourself, whose opinion is controlling me right now? And consider what would change if you let go of that opinion. Benefits of letting go of the need to please others. When we begin to consciously separate what in our lives is under our control and what isn't, we gradually let go of the need to be approved by everyone. This has several benefits. Emotional independence. You are no longer tied to others' emotions and don't react painfully to critical remarks. Inner harmony. You find peace knowing that you are acting according to your own beliefs and not for the sake of others' approval. Increased confidence. When you know you are acting according to your values, your self-esteem becomes less dependent on others' opinions. Summary and conclusions of Chapter 1. The key takeaway from the first chapter is recognizing the limits of your control. Stoicism teaches us that not everything in life is within our control, and if we accept this idea, we can free ourselves from the desire to please everyone. Instead, we can focus on living by our own principles, building self-worth based not on others' evaluations, but on our own beliefs and actions. Chapter 2. Define your own values and principles. What does it mean to live according to your own values? Many people go through life without fully realizing what truly drives their actions, beliefs, and choices. In modern culture, where values are often imposed by family, friends, society, and media, we may lose sight of the principles we actually want to follow. Living according to your values is the foundation of emotional independence. The Stoics argued that knowing your values allows you to remain steadfast in the face of societal pressure and to build a life based on your own beliefs. This chapter focuses on understanding what it means to live in harmony with your internal principles and how to identify them. The importance of personal values. Values serve as a guiding force in decision-making and shape our approach to the world and others. For example, if someone strongly believes in the importance of honesty, they will avoid situations where they would need to hide something or lie. Values can be seen as an inner compass, guiding a person. When we act in alignment with our principles, we feel satisfaction, peace, and inner integrity. But when we go against them, we experience anxiety, frustration, and even inner conflict. The clearer a person understands their true values, the easier it becomes to build healthy and meaningful relationships, make important decisions, and follow their own path without looking for approval from others. Steps to realizing your values. The process of recognizing personal values takes time and self-reflection. Here are some steps to help you understand this topic better. Identify moments of pride and shame. Recall events when you felt proud of your actions. Write down what specifically caused this feeling and analyze what belief or principle was behind it. Do the same with situations where you felt shame or regret. This will help you see what actions are consistent with your internal values. Keep a journal. Regularly write down situations in which you had to make a choice requiring awareness of your beliefs. It could be something minor, like choosing not to help someone, or a major decision, like changing jobs. Analyze what principles guided your choice. Identify values you want to strengthen. You may realize that some of your current values were imposed on you by society or family. For instance, you might think that career success is your priority, but in reality, your true value might be freedom and independence. Decide which values you want to strengthen and develop. Create an internal evaluation system. Develop a simple system to assess actions and decisions based on whether they align with your beliefs. For example, if honesty is a key value, ask yourself after each significant situation, was I honest in my actions? Distinguishing between internal and imposed values. One important aspect of Stoicism is the ability to separate genuine values from those imposed by society. This is a complex process, as our beliefs are often shaped by upbringing, environment, and the culture in which we live. For example, a person may believe that career success is their priority, but they may not realize that their true value is freedom and independence. There are several ways to determine if a value was imposed on you. Feeling of inner conflict. When faced with a decision based on an imposed value, you may feel inner discomfort, anxiety, or doubt. Frequent disappointment. If you strive to achieve a goal imposed on you, it may lead to a feeling of dissatisfaction, even after achieving it. Insincerity. Actions based on others' beliefs often feel superficial and do not bring deep satisfaction. Creating a personal values declaration. One way to strengthen your principles is to create a personal values declaration. This declaration can act as a contract with yourself, in which you establish the main principles you want to follow in life. An example of a declaration might include statements like, I act with honesty and sincerity. I respect others' boundaries as well as my own. I do not seek approval from others and evaluate my actions based on my own principles. This declaration can serve as a guide during moments of doubt or when making difficult decisions. Chapter 3. Accept your weaknesses and imperfections. What does it mean to accept your weaknesses? Many people find it difficult to acknowledge their flaws because it is often seen as vulnerability or weakness. However, Stoic philosophy teaches us that accepting our imperfections is one of the first steps toward gaining true inner strength. Acceptance does not mean inaction or giving up on improvement, but it allows us to free ourselves from the destructive illusions of perfection and encourages us to view ourselves realistically. This understanding makes us more resilient, helping us cope with failures and also allowing us to be more authentic with others. Why is it important to accept our imperfections? Denying our flaws causes us to struggle with ourselves, which can lead to inner conflicts and dissatisfaction. On the other hand, accepting our weaknesses helps us recognize them as part of our unique experience. Thus, we gain freedom from imposed standards of perfection and stop judging ourselves harshly for our mistakes. When we accept our imperfections, we no longer rely on the expectations of others, which might push us to overstrive for an ideal. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of striving for self-improvement, but not at the cost of mercilessly condemning our own flaws. Acceptance of weaknesses as a path to true strength. In Stoicism, acceptance of weaknesses is viewed as a form of strength, not weakness. When a person acknowledges their limitations, they gain wisdom. Recognizing our flaws frees us from self-criticism and allows us to focus on real growth. This is not a surrender to stagnation, but an acknowledgement that each person is a process, not a finished product. This approach helps us stop worrying about what others think and focus on what truly matters. The importance of inner dialogue. One of the key aspects of accepting oneself is honest inner dialogue. When we recognize and accept our weaknesses, it doesn't mean we should indulge them, but it helps us evaluate ourselves objectively and without self-deception. Many people tend to avoid criticism, both external and internal, but Stoic philosophy encourages an honest self-assessment. This allows us to understand which aspects need development and change. Inner dialogue helps identify where we may be exaggerating our weaknesses or, on the contrary, avoiding acknowledging our limitations. The benefits of accepting your imperfections. Emotional stability. A person who accepts themselves experiences less negative emotion and stress because they are not constantly trying to prove their worth to others. They are more focused on inner peace rather than external approval. Openness to criticism. By accepting our flaws, we become less vulnerable to external criticism. We understand that criticism is an opportunity for growth, not an attack on our identity. Increased resilience. When we do not expect perfection from ourselves, we become less vulnerable to disappointment. Mistakes are seen as part of the journey, not as something that causes self-doubt. Building real relationships. When we stop pretending to be perfect, it allows us to be more open and genuine with others. We attract people into our lives who accept us as we are and support our development. Techniques for accepting weaknesses. Practices of self-compassion and mindfulness. Self-analysis practice. Regular self-analysis helps identify aspects of your personality that may require work. Instead of criticizing yourself, try to view your weaknesses as areas for growth. This allows you to see vulnerability as a path to true strength. Self-compassion. It is important to be strict with ourselves, but also remember to practice compassion. Acknowledge your mistakes, but do not condemn yourself for them. Chapter 4. Develop emotional resilience. What is emotional resilience? Emotional resilience refers to the ability to adapt to and recover from adversity, setbacks, or difficult situations. It is not about avoiding stress or negative emotions, but rather about how we cope with them when they inevitably arise. In Stoicism, emotional resilience is seen as a critical skill for living a good life. The Stoics believed that external circumstances do not dictate our happiness. Our responses to them do. Developing emotional resilience allows us to remain calm, composed, and purposeful in the face of challenges. The role of perception in emotional resilience. Our emotions are often shaped by our perceptions of the world around us. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control external events, but we can control how we perceive and respond to them. This is the core idea of the Stoic concept of dichotomy of control, which states that we should focus on what is within our control, our thoughts, attitudes, and actions, and let go of concern over what lies outside of it. For example, when faced with an unexpected challenge, you can either react with frustration, anger, or stress, or you can choose to perceive the situation as an opportunity for growth and learning. It is not the situation itself that causes suffering, but how we choose to interpret it. Developing emotional resilience involves changing the way we perceive obstacles, viewing them as temporary and surmountable rather than as insurmountable hardships. Practical strategies for building emotional resilience. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment. When faced with difficult emotions, mindfulness helps you acknowledge your feelings without letting them overwhelm you. By observing your emotions without attachment, you can gain greater clarity and perspective, allowing you to respond calmly rather than react impulsively. Stoics often practiced mindfulness by engaging in reflective exercises, such as journaling or meditation, to assess their thoughts and emotions objectively. Reframe negative thoughts. Reframing is a cognitive technique that involves changing the way we think about a situation. For instance, instead of seeing failure as a disaster, reframe it as a valuable learning experience. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius often reminded themselves to see challenges and setbacks as opportunities for growth. By changing the narrative we tell ourselves about a situation, we can alter our emotional response to it. This helps build emotional resilience by reducing the emotional charge we attach to difficulties. Cultivate gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful tool for building emotional resilience. When we focus on the things we are grateful for, we shift our attention away from what is going wrong in our lives and instead appreciate what is going right. The Stoics practiced gratitude by regularly reflecting on the positive aspects of their lives, even in difficult times. They believed that focusing on gratitude helps to maintain perspective and reduce negative emotional reactions. By intentionally cultivating gratitude, we can strengthen our emotional resilience and improve our overall well-being. Accept impermanence. One of the central teachings of Stoicism is the acceptance of change and impermanence. Everything in life is transient. Both good and bad experiences are temporary. When we accept that nothing lasts forever, we become less attached to outcomes and more resilient in the face of challenges. This does not mean we stop caring about the outcomes, but rather that we learn to adapt and remain grounded no matter what comes our way. By accepting the ebb and flow of life, we can face adversity with greater calmness and emotional strength. The importance of emotional resilience in relationships. Emotional resilience plays a crucial role in our relationships with others. Life is full of misunderstandings, conflicts, and challenges, and without emotional resilience, these situations can lead to resentment, frustration, and emotional distance. Developing emotional resilience allows us to navigate difficult conversations with patience and empathy, rather than reacting impulsively or defensively. For example, if someone close to you criticizes or disappoints you, emotional resilience allows you to process the emotion without letting it overwhelm you. Instead of reacting angrily or withdrawing, you can respond thoughtfully, understanding that the situation is temporary and that both parties may have room for growth. In relationships, emotional resilience also involves forgiving others and ourselves, understanding that mistakes are part of being human and that healing takes time. Building resilience through adversity. One of the most powerful ways to develop emotional resilience is by embracing adversity rather than avoiding it. Stoics believed that adversity was an essential part of life, and that overcoming challenges is what shapes and strengthens our character. This perspective encourages us to view difficulties as opportunities for growth, rather than as threats to our well-being. By confronting adversity head-on, we learn to manage our emotions, develop problem-solving skills, and become more adaptable. Whether it is a personal failure, a difficult relationship, or a health challenge, facing adversity with a Stoic mindset can help us emerge stronger and more resilient. Building a Stoic framework for emotional resilience. Prepare for difficulties. The Stoics believed that it was wise to mentally prepare for potential challenges in life. This does not mean expecting the worst or becoming anxious about the future, but rather acknowledging that challenges are inevitable and preparing ourselves to face them calmly. By visualizing potential obstacles in advance, we can develop the mental strength to handle them when they arise. Focus on what you can control. One of the core principles of Stoicism is focusing only on what is within your control. We cannot control how others behave, the events that happen to us, or external circumstances. However, we can control our responses to these situations. By focusing on our own thoughts, attitudes, and actions, we can cultivate emotional resilience and remain grounded no matter what life throws at us. Cultivate detachment from outcomes. Stoics believe that we should not become overly attached to specific outcomes because the results are often beyond our control. By focusing on the process and doing our best, rather than obsessing over the result, we reduce the emotional volatility that comes from disappointment or unmet expectations. This detachment from outcomes helps build emotional resilience and allows us to accept whatever happens with equanimity. Conclusion: emotional resilience as a Stoic virtue. Emotional resilience is a key Stoic virtue because it allows us to live a life of tranquility, even in the midst of hardship. By cultivating resilience, we become less affected by external events and more focused on what truly matters: our inner peace, our values, and our relationships with others. Developing emotional resilience is a lifelong practice, but it is one that can provide us with the strength to face life's challenges with calmness and wisdom, knowing that we have the power to control our reactions and maintain our inner stability. This chapter explores the significance of emotional resilience in Stoic philosophy, providing practical tools to strengthen this important virtue. By following these principles, we can navigate life's difficulties with grace and composure, fostering a deeper sense of personal strength and tranquility. Chapter 5: Cultivating Self-Control and Discipline. The nature of self-control. Self-control is often seen as the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. Without it, individuals are at the mercy of their impulses, desires, and external circumstances. In the Stoic worldview, self-control is not about repression or denying our natural urges. Rather, it is about understanding them, acknowledging their presence, and choosing not to be controlled by them. The Stoics viewed self-control as essential for living a virtuous life and aligning one's actions with reason, rather than reacting impulsively based on emotion. Self-control is the ability to govern one's actions, thoughts, and feelings in a way that is aligned with personal values and long-term goals, rather than being driven by temporary desires or external circumstances. It allows us to take responsibility for our actions and decisions, cultivating a sense of autonomy and inner peace. Why self-control is essential for growth. Without self-control, we can easily fall prey to harmful behaviors such as procrastination, indulgence, or rash decisions that are driven by fleeting emotions. The lack of self-control also makes it difficult to maintain focus on what truly matters, as we get distracted by external temptations or immediate gratifications. The Stoic philosophers believed that a life led by impulse and emotion is a life of chaos, constantly tossed between the highs of pleasure and the lows of suffering. Self-control, on the other hand, provides a sense of inner stability. When we can regulate our emotions and actions, we begin to create a sense of order in our lives. We are not controlled by our desires. We are the masters of our own choices. The role of virtue in self-control. In Stoicism, self-control is intrinsically linked to the development of virtue. The Stoics viewed virtue as the highest good, with virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance forming the foundation for ethical living. Temperance, or moderation, is one of the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism and directly relates to self-control. It is the ability to moderate our desires and actions in a way that does not cause harm to ourselves or others. The practice of temperance allows us to strike a balance between excess and deficiency. It teaches us to avoid extremes and embrace moderation. This doesn't mean we should deny ourselves enjoyment, but rather that we should understand the difference between healthy indulgence and destructive excess. By practicing temperance, we build the strength to resist impulsive behaviors and make choices that are aligned with our values and long-term well-being. Developing self-discipline through daily practices. Mindful reflection. The Stoics believed that daily reflection was essential for cultivating self-control. By taking time each day to reflect on our actions, thoughts, and emotions, we gain insight into where we are succeeding and where we need improvement. Reflection allows us to become aware of our impulses and urges, which we can then choose to address before they lead to negative actions. This practice helps reinforce our commitment to living in accordance with reason and virtue. One useful practice is journaling, a method employed by Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote about his thoughts and experiences, using them as a way to reflect on his behavior and identify areas where he could improve. By doing this regularly, we become more attuned to our inner states, which makes it easier to exercise self-control when faced with challenges. Setting clear intentions. Self-discipline is often a matter of setting clear intentions and staying focused on them. When we have a clear sense of purpose and direction, we are less likely to be swayed by distractions. Stoics believed that it was important to be intentional about our actions and goals, rather than allowing ourselves to be reactive and impulsive. This requires cultivating a sense of self-awareness and being conscious of how we spend our time and energy. Delayed gratification. One of the key aspects of self-control is the ability to delay immediate gratification in favor of long-term rewards. The Stoics believed that true fulfillment comes from cultivating inner peace, wisdom, and virtue, not from the temporary pleasures that life offers. By practicing delayed gratification, we learn to resist the urge for instant pleasure and focus instead on the enduring satisfaction that comes from pursuing meaningful goals. The Stoic view of emotions and self-control. Emotions are an inevitable part of human life, and the Stoics did not advocate for suppressing them entirely. Instead, they believed that we should learn to manage our emotions in a way that is consistent with reason and virtue. Self-control, in the Stoic sense, involves recognizing our emotions as natural, but choosing not to be controlled by them. For example, when faced with anger, the Stoic would acknowledge the emotion, but would not allow it to dictate their actions. They would pause, reflect, and consider how to respond in a way that aligns with their values. This is in contrast to reacting impulsively, which often leads to regret and negative consequences. The Stoic approach is to cultivate an emotional response that is deliberate and reasoned, rather than being at the mercy of fleeting emotional states. Building mental and physical discipline. Self-discipline is not just a mental practice, it extends to our physical habits as well. In the Stoic tradition, mental and physical discipline go hand in hand. Just as we train our minds to focus on reason and virtue, we also train our bodies to endure challenges and resist temptation. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Seneca practiced physical discipline as part of their philosophical lifestyle, using exercises like fasting or physical endurance challenges to build resilience. Physical discipline can be an essential part of cultivating self-control. Regular exercise, healthy eating, and proper sleep habits are all ways to train the body and mind to work in harmony. By committing to physical discipline, we reinforce our ability to control our impulses and build the mental fortitude necessary to live a virtuous life. The connection between self-control and freedom. At first glance, self-control might seem like a limiting practice, one that restricts our freedom. However, in Stoic philosophy, true freedom comes from the mastery of oneself. By exercising self-control, we free ourselves from the domination of our impulses and external circumstances. We no longer live in reaction to the world around us, but are able to act according to our own reason and values. In this sense, self-control is not about restriction, but about empowerment. The more we cultivate self-control, the more we become the masters of our own lives. We are no longer slaves to our desires or the judgments of others. Instead, we are free to live in accordance with our highest principles, making choices that align with our long-term goals and personal growth. Conclusion: the role of self-control in living a virtuous life. Self-control is essential for living a virtuous life, as it allows us to align our actions with reason and purpose. The Stoics believed that true freedom comes from the ability to control ourselves, not from the ability to do whatever we please. By developing self-discipline, we create the foundation for living a life of integrity, wisdom, and fulfillment. Through daily practices of mindfulness, intention setting, and delayed gratification, we can strengthen our self-control and cultivate the resilience needed to face life's challenges. When we master ourselves, we are free to live according to our values, embracing each day with clarity and purpose. This chapter explores the importance of self-control and discipline in Stoic philosophy, offering practical tools to develop these virtues in our daily lives. By practicing self-control, we empower ourselves to live with greater intention and clarity, leading to a more... Chapter 6. Embracing Impermanence and Change. The Stoic concept of impermanence, one of the core teachings of Stoicism, is the idea that everything in life is temporary. The Stoic philosophers, including Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, consistently reminded themselves that nothing lasts forever, whether it is pleasure, pain, success, or failure. Life is a continuous flow of change, and everything we experience is fleeting. This idea of impermanence is a fundamental part of Stoic practice because it helps us to cultivate resilience, patience, and an ability to remain calm in the face of life's uncertainties. At its core, Stoicism teaches us that nothing is inherently good or bad in itself. Rather, our perception and attachment to it determine whether it is favorable or unfavorable. The key to living a virtuous life is learning to detach from the temporary nature of things and focusing instead on the things that are within our control, our thoughts, attitudes, and actions. By accepting the impermanence of all things, we can release the need for constant control and instead learn to embrace the natural flow of life, transience of life, and the wisdom of mortality. One of the most powerful ways to accept impermanence is by reflecting on our own mortality. The Stoics did not shy away from the thought of death. In fact, they believed that regular contemplation of death was essential for living a virtuous life. The idea of memento mori, remember that you will die, was a common theme in Stoic teachings, reminding us that life is short and time is precious. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, frequently reminded himself of the transitory nature of life. By contemplating death, he found the motivation to live fully in the present, making the most of his time on earth. The Stoics did not see death as something to fear, but as a natural part of existence. Embracing our mortality allows us to let go of unnecessary fears, anxieties, and attachments, and to focus on what truly matters, living in accordance with virtue, making the best use of the time we have, and embracing change as an inevitable part of the human experience. Impermanence in relationships. Just as everything in life is temporary, so too are the relationships we form. This doesn't mean that we should abandon our relationships or love them any less. Rather, it suggests that we must learn to accept that people, situations, and even feelings will evolve and change. When we cling too tightly to people or situations, we set ourselves up for inevitable disappointment. People grow, change, and sometimes drift apart, but by accepting the impermanence of relationships, we can maintain peace of mind and let go of unhealthy attachments. In Stoic practice, love and friendship are seen as virtues, but they are not meant to be possessive. The Stoics believed that relationships should be built on respect, mutual growth, and shared values, rather than on the expectation of permanence or control. When we accept that relationships may not last forever, we can appreciate them more fully in the present moment, without becoming dependent on them for our happiness. This mindset helps us to navigate the inevitable challenges in relationships. Instead of reacting with resentment or fear when things change, we can embrace the natural ebb and flow of human connection. We learn to love freely and to let go gracefully when necessary, knowing that every moment of connection is precious, regardless of its duration. Letting go of attachment, the key to peace. Attachment is one of the main sources of suffering in life, whether it is attachment to a person, an object, or a specific outcome. Attachment often leads to anxiety, frustration, and disappointment when things do not unfold as expected. Stoicism teaches that the key to peace is letting go of attachment and learning to appreciate things for what they are, without clinging to them. The Stoics recognize that our attachment to external things, the desire for wealth, success, or recognition, often leads to a cycle of longing and dissatisfaction. These things, like everything else in life, are impermanent. In fact, everything that is not under our direct control is inherently unstable. The Stoics did not believe in rejecting or avoiding these things, but they did believe in approaching them with detachment and understanding that they are not the source of true happiness. For instance, if we experience a period of financial prosperity, the Stoic response is not to become overly attached to the wealth, but to recognize it as temporary. Likewise, if we lose that wealth, the Stoic will approach the loss with acceptance, understanding that it is not a tragedy, but simply a part of life's natural rhythm. This attitude allows us to live more freely, without fear of loss or disappointment. The role of acceptance in Stoicism. Acceptance is a fundamental aspect of Stoic philosophy. It is the act of acknowledging what is outside our control and choosing to respond to it with grace and composure. Accepting impermanence is not the same as resignation. It is a conscious choice to embrace change as an inevitable part of life and to adapt to it with equanimity. When we resist change or fight against the impermanence of life, we create unnecessary suffering for ourselves. The Stoics believed that it was better to accept the ebb and flow of life, acknowledging that nothing stays the same forever. This does not mean that we passively accept everything that happens to us without taking action. Rather, it means that we learn to respond to challenges with a calm and rational mind, knowing that we have the power to control our response, even if we cannot control the situation itself. Acceptance also involves understanding that setbacks, losses, and challenges are a natural part of the human experience. By accepting these as part of life's impermanence, we are less likely to be thrown off course when things go wrong. Instead of reacting with frustration or despair, we can meet adversity with a sense of calmness and resilience, knowing that we will grow stronger through the experience. Living with purpose in the face of impermanence. The understanding of impermanence can also serve as a powerful motivator to live with greater purpose. When we fully recognize the temporary nature of life, we become more committed to living in a way that is aligned with our values and goals. The Stoics believed that by focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, we can create a life that is meaningful and fulfilling, regardless of external circumstances. When we are aware that time is limited, we are more likely to prioritize what truly matters. We become less concerned with superficial achievements or fleeting pleasures, and more focused on cultivating virtue, wisdom, and meaningful connections. The acceptance of impermanence does not lead to nihilism or despair. Rather, it gives us the clarity and motivation to live each day with intention, knowing that every moment is an opportunity to live in accordance with our deepest values. The power of resilience in the face of change. Stoicism teaches us that change, while inevitable, is not something to fear. Instead, it is something to be embraced. When we cultivate resilience, we develop the ability to adapt to change with strength and grace. Resilience is the ability to recover from adversity and maintain a sense of purpose in the face of difficulty. It is through embracing change that we grow stronger, more adaptable, and more capable of navigating the challenges of life. Resilience allows us to face life's uncertainties without being overwhelmed by them. It is a vital aspect of emotional and mental well-being, as it gives us the strength to bounce back from setbacks and to continue moving forward, no matter what obstacles we encounter. By embracing impermanence and developing resilience, we learn to live with greater freedom and peace. Conclusion: the Stoic approach to impermanence and change. Embracing impermanence is an essential aspect of Stoic practice. By accepting that all things are temporary, we can let go of attachment, reduce unnecessary suffering, and live more fully in the present. The Stoic approach to impermanence teaches us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, attitudes, and actions, and to accept that change is an inevitable part of life. In doing so, we become more resilient, adaptable, and capable of navigating life's challenges with wisdom and grace. Through the practice of acceptance, detachment, and resilience, we can live a life that is aligned with our highest values, free from the fear of loss or the anxiety of change. The understanding of impermanence does not diminish the value of life. Rather, it enhances it, reminding us to live fully, embrace each moment, and grow stronger in the face of life's ever-changing nature. This chapter delves into the Stoic understanding of impermanence and change, offering practical tools to navigate the inevitable fluctuations of life with calmness and resilience. By embracing the transient nature of existence, we are empowered to live with greater purpose, peace, and wisdom. Chapter 7. Final Reflections: Embracing Life's Impermanence. The essence of Stoicism in a changing world. As we conclude our exploration of Stoic principles and how they help us embrace impermanence, it's important to reflect on the core lessons that the Stoics have imparted to us. At the heart of Stoicism lies a profound understanding that life is in constant flux. The one certainty in life is that nothing remains the same. Everything we encounter, whether it's joy or suffering, wealth or poverty, success or failure, is temporary. This idea of impermanence runs deep through Stoic philosophy, and learning to accept it is one of the most liberating and powerful practices we can undertake. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with change, whether it be changes in our relationships, careers, physical bodies, or the larger social and political environments, it is essential to cultivate resilience and perspective. To be at peace with impermanence means that we can navigate the most difficult circumstances with grace, wisdom, and emotional balance. The Stoics, from Epictetus to Marcus Aurelius, remind us that although we cannot control the external forces that shape our lives, we always have control over our responses to them. The essence of Stoic philosophy in the context of impermanence is not to resist change, but to embrace it as a natural, inevitable part of the human experience. It encourages us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors, and to let go of the need to control everything around us. In doing so, we create space for peace, resilience, and deeper fulfillment. This Stoic acceptance is not passive resignation, but an active embrace of reality as it is, coupled with the effort to live virtuously, regardless of the challenges we face. Acceptance of life's transitions. One of the most powerful aspects of Stoicism is its invitation to embrace life's transitions. Change, whether it's small shifts or profound transformations, is part of what makes life meaningful. The transitions that we experience, growing older, changing jobs, or the evolving nature of our relationships, are not obstacles to happiness, but rather opportunities for growth. The Stoic wisdom teaches us that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to it. When we acknowledge the impermanent nature of all things, we can find freedom from the fear of change. The key to thriving in life is not avoiding change, but embracing it with understanding and grace. Change becomes less of a source of anxiety and more of a tool for growth and self-discovery. By facing transitions with courage, we open ourselves to new opportunities, new experiences, and new ways of thinking. The power of letting go. Letting go is a central theme in Stoicism. The Stoics taught that attachment to things, whether to people, possessions, or ideas, is the root of much of our suffering. This attachment stems from the desire to control that which is outside of our influence. However, the Stoics believe that true freedom lies in our ability to detach from these externalities and focus on what is truly within our control, our own actions, thoughts, and attitudes. In practice, letting go involves releasing the need for things to remain permanent or constant. It means accepting that people will change, circumstances will shift, and even our own bodies will age and deteriorate over time. The Stoics encourage us to see these changes as natural and not to resist them. The more we hold on to something, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment when it inevitably changes or leaves us. By practicing detachment, we do not become indifferent to the people and things we care about. Rather, we learn to appreciate them for what they are, without demanding that they remain in the exact form we want. This acceptance of impermanence allows us to enjoy life fully without being trapped by fear or anxiety about the future, living with intention and purpose. One of the most transformative aspects of embracing impermanence is the realization that time is finite. As the Stoics often remind us, our lives are short and every moment is precious. This understanding of impermanence is not meant to induce despair, but to inspire action. When we understand that we cannot control how much time we have, we are motivated to make the most of it. We are encouraged to live intentionally, focusing on what truly matters to us and aligning our actions with our deepest values. Living with purpose and intention means prioritizing what brings us fulfillment, joy, and a sense of meaning. It means focusing on the relationships, activities, and experiences that contribute to our growth as human beings. Instead of getting caught up in the pursuit of external validation, status, or material possessions, we focus on the things that nourish our soul: virtue, wisdom, compassion, and connection with others. By living intentionally, we acknowledge that life's impermanence only makes the moments that we do have even more valuable. Every experience, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity to align with our deepest values and live a life of meaning. Resilience and acceptance. Facing life's challenges with strength. A key Stoic lesson is that life will present us with challenges. There will be setbacks, losses, and moments of suffering. Yet the Stoic response to adversity is not to resist or to be crushed by it, but to face it with resilience and acceptance. The Stoics recognized that hardship is a natural part of life, and it is through hardship that we often learn the most about ourselves. Resilience, in the Stoic sense, is not about bouncing back to where we were before the adversity, but about adapting and growing in response to it. It is about becoming stronger through hardship and maintaining our inner peace despite external chaos. When we accept that challenges and suffering are part of life's impermanence, we can approach them not with fear, but with a sense of equanimity. This kind of resilience allows us to face anything life throws our way with clarity, patience, and grace. Rather than being consumed by frustration or anger, we can view challenges as opportunities for personal growth. The Stoic approach teaches us that we are capable of withstanding far more than we might imagine if we remain rooted in our sense of purpose and virtue. Embracing change as a path to growth. The final lesson of this exploration is the importance of embracing change as a natural and necessary part of life. Change is not something to fear, it is something to welcome. Through change, we discover new aspects of ourselves and the world around us. It is through change that we evolve, learn, and deepen our understanding of life. When we fully embrace the inevitability of change, we free ourselves from the paralysis of fear and resistance. We become more adaptable, open to new ideas, and capable of thriving in ever-shifting circumstances. Change is an opportunity for personal development, a chance to refine our character, and an invitation to expand our horizons. Conclusion: the wisdom of Stoic acceptance. As we reflect on the Stoic teachings regarding impermanence, it becomes clear that accepting the transient nature of life is not just a philosophical exercise. It is a transformative way of living. By acknowledging that nothing lasts forever, we can free ourselves from the fear of loss and the anxiety of the unknown. We learn to live in the present moment, appreciating what we have without clinging to it. We cultivate resilience, adaptability, and a deep sense of inner peace, knowing that change is inevitable, but our response to it is always within our control. Through Stoicism, we are invited to embrace life's impermanence with open arms. By accepting what we cannot change and focusing on what we can control, we create a life of meaning, purpose, and peace. The wisdom of impermanence teaches us that life is fleeting, and in this knowledge, we find the freedom to live fully, authentically, and with intention.